Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11. And of course we're playing as Japan. Now, I'm facing a bit of a dilemma here. Off here, at least we can't see at the moment, but we'll see very soon here. Off Hilo, or in Hilo Harbor, there is a huge doom stack of American vessels that are highly shot up and are not repairing because this is a very minimal port. I think it's maybe more than one, but it's very minimal. And we've kept port striking at reasonable amount, though I've set up for another one here. What I want to do is, smash the fleet entirely. But if I keep it here, and reports from others that see their doom stack that is really sort of bothering them, you know, can't invade islands or whatever because of the American doom stack coming around, that if I drive it out of here, it'll probably go back to someplace like San Diego, which will have a much larger port. I'm not exactly sure what it is right offhand. That was the primary American Pacific Coast naval port prior to World War II, if I'm not mistaken, down in San Diego. I think for geographical reasons. Hawaii is a bit, I think, further out here. Just this map is the way it is. I think during the war, San Francisco becomes more so the port. I think to a point that is, which are not in this game, which we should have, because of the railroads and such go to San Francisco much more than San Diego. Los Angeles is also another major port. Those are the three main ports in California of any sort of size. The Los Angeles Long Beach port. I went to a special school and that educated us about that. But yeah, the harbor, the outer breakwater, which was there at this time, is still there today, includes both Los Angeles port and Long Beach port. They're two different ports, two different authorities, all within the same breakwater. So it is in combined. At least back in the 80s, it was at least, I think, one of the top 5, if I remember correctly, ports. You know, I think Rotterdam in that sense, Singapore, you know, in sort of modern day sense, it was one of the major, the biggest port on the American Pacific coast at the time. You know, in the 80s. This was the main Pacific commercial port. San Francisco was at this, well, not, because sometimes we're talking about San Francisco. San Francisco is a county and a city. The city is the exact same area as the county, and it's the same sort of government, county and city of San Francisco. Where LA County has many cities, including the city of Los Angeles, but it has many cities, including, I think, Long Beach, that has like 5 million people in it. You know, there's countries that don't even have near that kind of population. That's just Long Beach in Los Angeles County. Doesn't include Orange County. Thank you, motorcycle. So yeah, and so how do you define the city of Los Angeles? Was definitely smaller than this population-wise than the city of San Francisco at this time, and it grows. But then you have to, you know, city of San Pedro, which is also sort of part of the LA port system, and you know, city of Long Beach and the various Orange County cities that had already existed, but those were still, well, when I was growing up, there was still lots of orange groves. You could readily see, like from the highway and other major streets in Orange County, where it gets its name. And it was, Orange County was, in World War II era, very much a rural farming community with a few small beach cities. in World War II. When I was still, like I say, growing up, it was no longer a rural farming community, but it still had lots of particularly oranges and other citrus type growing farms. Now basically all that's gone for various reasons. Land price being the biggest one, but other environmental problems like not enough water getting there to keep the citrus growing. So yeah, some depending on how you define it, but generally speaking, San Francisco was larger. Remember, that was the gold rush city. The gold rush was going on internally more. You have this capital up here in Sacramento, and there was a reason for all of that, because that was where the center of power in California was. Southern California was just sort of an afterthought at the time. Santa Barbara, yeah, there's a, I added that photo there. A port, it isn't much of a port. Oceanside, that's Laguna Beach that you're looking at there at the time, which is a very nice place. I've said before, sort of just off this picture, right about there, sort of in the cliff that's overlooking the beach, I worked for a few years as a, they would have called me, and I was officially on the list because it was for a major chain, a doorman, but a bouncer in a, that had a really nice patio. And yeah, there's some stories why they needed bouncers. Crowd control was part of it, just generally speaking, but once in a while. But a really high-end restaurant that had a really nice sort of patio that was sort of a bar patio that you get a limited thing there. So spent one day a week. I mean, it was just a part-time one day a week job, hanging out outside, you know, for 8 hours on a weekend day down in Laguna Beach. Yeah, I've been lucky in life. So yeah, so this really really shouldn't be here as a port, because I'm thinking the only thing, and I don't even know how much closest thing to sort of a port. I mean, well, in and around and picturing, yeah, trying to picture back then, because there is sort of a yacht type, but it's sort of a natural port. Yeah, maybe a level 1 port. But saying that, then there should be 2 or 3 more of them, especially up in here, if you're going at that level at that time. Because I'm thinking, you know, Huntington Beach around the way there, yeah, yeah, maybe at that time, but really it's Los Angeles, Long Beach, which is one complex, San Diego, and San Francisco. Okay, get back to my dilemma. So if I take this province, this fleet's going to go somewhere, and probably go somewhere that will get properly rebuilt. So what I want to do is to, for the invasion and for the exodus of the fleet, I want to pound that fleet and sink as much of it as possible, preferably at the lowest possible cost and actual losses. So that's what we're excuse me, that's what we're focusing on right now. And just because sort of the whole Hawaiian Island focus is why, and yes, I have enough transport, and I've actually stripped some of that away. I could have easily invaded the Philippines, but I've just been noticing, well, a little bit more Commonwealth activity up here now, which is actually sort of doing it. Oh, and as Legitimate pointed out, I should have some more patrols out here, because we see War Sprite and, what is that? MAL? Not quite getting who the other battleship is there. To be patrolling out here, but I'm just focusing everything out out there a little more than I should be, probably, just because, you know, how many balls can you keep in the air at one time focused well? And that is where I see the primary importance. So let's continue this. One thing I do want to see is here. Okay, so they rebuilt the port a little bit. I'm looking at the green. The less green the better, because I want them to be in bad organizational shape, preferably also in bad strength shape. I'm sending, I think it's 2 more fleets to the zone, and I'm shifting some air power. Wow, see, we're only right here now. They get there too late to enter the battle, yeah. I think we're going to put you on air superiority. Air superiority. Just stay out there. And normally, well, I mean, as you well know, I normally am used to playing Germany. And so normally I'm trying to do 2 things with Germany particularly, and I'm also sort of doing it for Japan. One of them is a fuel situation with Germany. I'm trying to keep fuel usage down, so I'm not trying to do air superiority. The other is not quite sure how all the mechanics work in the difference between air intercept and air superiority. Definitely air superiority is putting air units flying over an area. I understand that part of it. What I sort of worry about is or what I'm compared to air intercept is once an air battle starts, I want all the air in the area to try to get into that battle. And I'm not sure how well or how effective air superiority would be. Now, it would have been better since we know the specific province here. Now, I'm not putting everything to air superiority because once the fleet goes out, I want them to go out to sea and cover it without me having to try to micro it. And yes, I totally get, I forget who's, sorry, comment about, hey, you should patrol the areas better. You have a lot of fleets doing nothing. Well, this stems from 2 things. One, my experience playing Germany and attempting to avoid disastrous naval battles. You guys can come back up to port here. You should just be hunting subs a bit more. Maybe have a bit more of an escort. I feel that if I send out ships on patrols, I'm too likely to lose them again from my previous experience, because they'll get into an air battle, or I mean a naval battle, and I'll only be notified effectively once the battle is over, and so I don't have the ability to break off, go home, don't keep fighting this out or something. And I guess maybe probably what I should have been doing all along is putting them out as passive, so once they get enough damage, they'll like try to split out and not continue to do it. That would be a help on that front. On the other front, yeah, see, these guys are moving here because I want the Yamato to be part of that hammering of the fleet. And we also have this fleet rushing out there at 32 kilometers an hour to add another couple of CAGs and some pocket battleships, which very well may get shot up and sink, but I'd rather have a pocket battleship sink than lose a and sink a bunch of stuff than lose some other stuff, because they're pretty cheap and easy to build. So, oh yes, oh, let's look for speed. Okay, they're 32, They're the invasion fleet. They're at 32, and these guys are 22. So we're going to slow down one of these fleets. Doesn't matter. Let's do Soyu. So they'll get the Musashi, what's left of the Musashi group. I think their original escort and a light cruiser got sunk. So this will slow them down, but it'll make sure that we have, and it will be hopefully in a coherent package and not just separate. Of some really good pounding ships. Okay, you're here. Good. Come down this way. These guys, they can sort of. Maybe they should be moving this way fast, and these guys can move that way. Put more combat pressure. Yes, of course we're losing provinces there. But the ones that really sort of count, well, that does count. Let's move to Mandalay. Maybe you'll get there in time to save it. And to a point, like I was sort of saying, is you can only focus on so much. I don't think they have any more air around here, so they should be, well, let's move them here. They'll be better protected and have better fleet support, because that doesn't have any fleet support right now. Between my invasions and maybe port bombing, you guys come there. Once these guys are in shape, then we're going to strike out into the Indian Ocean, I think. Now that we've, well, except for here, we've gotten rid of their ports. But I was just too worried about transport ships and other things getting shot up going through here too much, and they were. So yeah, I should be doing more of that type of stuff, of not just having ships sit in ports, but combination of needing to be attentive to it, as well as our situation here with this big fleet that we can see here. Oh, I want to be looking here actually, don't I? Okay, yeah, they're resting up because they are. Well, let's do aggressive. I want to put in 2 more of these groups. I want to keep them. See, right there. And yes, part of it should, if these guys had been on. The other thing which I don't use too much is the intercept. Partially because I don't know what they're going to catch. CVs? Now, these guys don't have any air unless the local air does come up, but I'm not sure of that always, so. Hopefully they won't get port striked. Oh. Oh good, so now we got them, but bombing. Okay, I was just trying to make sure this and lower the green levels on other things as much as practical. Hopefully those guys got a piece of some of those CAGs this time. Okay, all of you guys that are on port strike duty, stop it. I think there may be just 3 of them. No, they're passive, but because I'm gonna, I think, be needing to do the naval strike out here. Okay, light cruiser engines advanced. Very good. Which will allow armor to be increased without significantly or at all. I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats. Slowing them down. I prefer faster ships. That may not be the best choice in the game, though. That's another another question, whether that is best stats in the game. But I just prefer faster ships. Yeah, let's start on cruise ship berthing, so that's going to take the longest. And light cruiser armor. Guess I should have noticed that one and take that one off too. And we'll get ship engine, because those take the second longest time. Those done. Since basically you need them all done to progress further ahead, might as well get the fast or the slower ones done first. Okay, I think the Yamato's there. These guys are coming up. They're coming. I think these guys are coming from down here somewhere. Or are these the ones coming from? No, these are the ones coming from Japan. Might as well try to get them all there. My doom stack versus their doom stack. Yes, we lost province. Okay, okay, you guys. Ground attack. Recon unit. Not sure if that'll be enough to switch the situation, but hey. Try to do it correctly. Okay, they're coming, but I don't want to wait any longer, and that may be a mistake, so I'm going to save it. And some of the ships are coming from out here anyway, so come to here. Movement order. Movement order. Yeah. Okay, these guys have no order because they're over here repairing. All the rest are moving. You guys have no order because you're over here repairing. Dead pocket battleship repaired. They're heading back to Japan if I remember correctly. Okay, I don't know if they should have gone or not, but a couple light carriers and pocket battleships. Not that they wouldn't have helped, but they weren't the main focus. Okay. I'm going to do air superiority over here. We're going to do air superiority over here specifically. Okay, oh, pause. Okay, commander decision making, target choices improved. Very good, because we're hopefully going to use that trait. Well, right now, we'll let that go. Better targeting choices, I hope, to more effectively sync everything. Okay, we're going to do, we're not going to be port striking. Actually, you know, what might have been actually better would have been to do a blockade, because that would have reduced their, as opposed to all these port strikes, reduced their port levels and kept them without getting any supplies. And continue to reduce their organization and such, and then hit them with 0 organization. As you can see, we got a lot of units here. I vectored in just about air superiority. We'll do air interceptor around here so that you're still covering Elo if things are coming off, but yeah, you're doing air superiority out the channel. No order, you're going to do naval strikes. You know, we're changing you over to air intercept. Same general area, but I want you to go out to see if that's where the action goes. So we're gonna wait for a few of these guys to get there. Yes, we lost a province. You're securing your rear areas. That is very good of you. Okay, yes, move forward, move forward, move forward. Big 115 destroyers. We'll see what we can get though. Oh, these guys are coming into port. They're there. Move. These guys invade here. If for some reason I'm doing something really stupid, we can go back to the save. What I'm sort of worried about also is overstacking and other things, but which I think we're going to be doing. USA attack. Japanese submarine lobs 17 shells in Port Stevens, Oregon, where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean. No return fire. Okay. That is somewhere around one of these areas here. Either it was this incident or maybe something up in Seattle. They specifically ordered no return fire because they didn't want to unmask the guns and show where the position was over just a submarine. If you get my meaning, you know, they were waiting. You know, if there's going to be a real invasion, you know, not just a sub out there firing a few shells. yeah, we're gonna, you know, fire off our guns and sink the ships, but we don't want to show the strength of the batteries or like their range of fire. You know, why didn't you fire earlier? Well, that may be the extent of the range of the guns. Because although the even the Endicott era fortifications that were still around that had the sort of disappearing guns types of things, and one thing I read about recently about disappearing guns, and I do still like them, and do still think they're effective, is that you pre-aimed them, because the gun is below, can't be seen. It's below a berm, you know, that's heavily thick with earth, and then, you know, heavily reinforced with concrete or bricks and other things to really absorb heavy impacts on them. So basically, you're firing into soft earth that you're almost guaranteed not to penetrate. Now, I don't know what 16 or 18-inch guns would do to that berm, but in the days when they were created, it was basically impenetrable. And then if you just barely miss them, the rounds go right over and beyond them, maybe into a hill behind them a ways, or just into the city or something else, but you're not hitting the guns. And so you had to just either hit them right on the lip or have a shell explode over them. And so they're very well protected. And that, so, you know, I would say most 6-inch guns probably wouldn't be penetrating their earthworks in front of them right away. I mean, eventually you could blast your way through them, but you'd have to be able to hit them a lot. And so they're actually quite good and quite effective. But I read that as ships got faster, even World War I, but post World War I, these guns, because you had to sort of like pre-aim them, you get them on target, and then you sort of do a release lever, and the gun lifts up and into position that you're on, right on target, and then fires, and the recoil of the gun makes it disappear behind the protection again. And that can be a bit of a delay, and so I'm sure, you know, you can lead targets, and that's quite effective, but if you're moving around, it's not going to be that effective. So, but these guns were still pretty powerful, but because of their technology and their age, they didn't have very good range. So like a 6-inch gun from a light cruiser, and most of these things could outrange it. You know, you could sit far enough off and shoot at it. Now, can you effectively hit the target? You know, and there's a lot of, you know, depends on the situation and the coastal fortifications. And so if you could spot it from the smoke, and then of course if you can lob rounds high enough in and land and hit them, which old naval gunnery couldn't, one, because most of them really didn't have the I'm going to think here, some of the older, a lot of the sponson a lot of them didn't have, you know, pretty high angle trajectories. They were pretty flat trajectories. Not that you didn't have enough to maybe do it, but again, it's like, instead of plunging fire drop down on it, yeah, it's sort of coming down a bit, but it's really critical, and you just, a little bit of overage, you just go past it, so it's still sort of coming in. But so if you can keep the guns masked, and you can keep the guns from the enemy knowing just where they are, and then you, last time, all right, we're coming in here, people. Yeah, we're coming in here. If you want to change your defense position, that's fine. But we're coming ashore here. And your small military police outfit isn't going to delay me significantly. And you can have all the benefits from probably massive equivalent of shore bombardment from all of those ships. The only thing we didn't bring was the coastal battleships, and I was sort of worried about their gun range and not being overly effective. Okay, AA control system is advanced for small vessels. Very good. That will slowly upgrade. Probably won't affect this battle, but yeah, let's do main armament. And Electro submarine class advanced. Very good. And grayed out. Good. And because of that, and because I do believe they're going to take a long time producing, let's build a couple of them just to have them, so that if the US gets even better and better at sub hunting, we can still maybe, I don't know if they can get from here to there, but we can take a few places, build a few ports, or once we get some ports somewhere else, we can use them effectively against the Americans. Yes, we're losing a few, and yes, we need to better. Well, one, of course, once we take the Philippines and then a few of these islands, obviously here, they're going to continue to lose organization, so do that. They won't be able to intercept, or submarines won't have the range to get deep enough to do some of that. But yes, a lot of these, my whole anti-submarine strategy is based out of these guys here, so they're all here. Put those out there, they'll start taking out subs. Maybe not all subs, maybe not stopping all actions or turning them victorious, but taking out some and reducing. Okay, the Battle of Hilo, which we've just won. Okay, ammunition capacity for various aircraft. Yeah, we'll let that go. Just obviously, biggest worry, I mean, speed does matter, but I'm just a range, and since we're looking at Pacific ranges out here, we are VOA? Voice of America? Is that what I'm fighting here? Oh, it's in Honolulu? Was this an event given thing, or is that a pretty sure that's an event given thing of some sort. Is it because I've occupied it long enough or something that it's now a, you know, rising up of stuff? I don't know. You know, propaganda type things? Okay, here we are. There's the Hornet. Then you got Nagato, Mitsui. There's the Yamato. Okay, it's already firing. These guys have already lost their organization. Basically, everybody had nearly full organization that went into this battle. Should be the Musashi somewhere, and I don't think I've seen it yet. The pocket battleships. Those should be doing good damage. Might not have a lot of staying power, but okay, well, there we lost. Yeah, we need to better. We need to get these fleets to doing some of these fleets to doing some of that stuff. But this is sort of the big show right now. Wouldn't quite say win or lose the war, but definitely have an effect on the outcome. You can join the battle. well, it looks like our air power is in much better shape than theirs. So hopefully that's having a good positive effect on the outcome of this. Okay, we've won the Battle of Honolulu against Voice of America. Had both a radio tower type symbol and okay, is this it or just the first round of this? I don't know. Oh, we lost the Soyu, the Hiru. Soyu and Hiru. And they lost the Enterprise, the Oklahoma, which was an old ship, 4th BB, whatever that was, the Texas, the Indiana, and some transports. Don't know if that list would get longer displayed or what, I'm not sure. Oh, what? Heavy cruiser main armament. Okay. Yeah. Naval strike out here and try to get everybody you can. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna pursue them. Maybe not that big of an area. Let's focus a little more. Oh, Soyu. Oh, was that the carrier group going back home? After the ship was sunk. Well, lost 2 carriers. Was that worth, was it 4 or 5 battleships? I also think this was needed. Yeah. Well, they could pursue. Their CAGs are doing really nice, so let's do a patrol to here. Yeah, it might cost me some of the vessels. Yeah, they're in no shape to pursue. Yeah. A little disappointed that the CAGs don't seem to have done as well as I would have hoped. I wonder, I'm just wondering now, had I moved... Well, this may not be that long an episode, not really timed it well. How's this for advice? Maybe I should go back and create 2 types of fleets. I'm just seeing my carriers being sunk and shot up. Yeah, I think I did this wrong, guys. I think I did this wrong. I think we're going to replay this, but this is instrumental. Here's my new plan. I'm going to replay this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 fleet types. One, this fleet type, sort of, might put some light carriers or something in it, but I'm not even thinking I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a battle fleet or group of battle fleets right here. Yeah, I'm going to play this out smarter. I'm going to do it next episode. I'm going to go back to the save that I did before launching all this. And so come back next time to see how this works out. So I'm going to have a group of battle fleets with like the Yamato and the Musashi and a bunch of surface vessels sitting here. And then I'm going to, because although I think I know I did lose some surface combatants, I didn't lose many. And so they're going to sit here, and then at one or two of these, or three, whatever, sea provinces, I'm going to set the carrier groups. And then I'm going to have, instead of having these guys do CAG duty, carrier air group duty, we're going to have them do naval strike onto this sea province. So they're just going to be naval striking, naval striking, naval striking, one, you know, mission after mission, while these guys are also doing that from the land base. Okay, San Diego. Let's see what happens. I'm still going to go back and try this just on the. Oh, okay, so here now, of course, these were already shot up. The Wichita's the only really heavy vessel, but we got a look at light cruisers and destroyers. So we're going to see if that. Oh, you know what might even be better if we stick them here. Because they are going to have some escorts. I'm going to try to put a lot of heavy cruisers and whatnot. It's going to be a decently balanced force, because I do think, don't know. I know in real life. I don't know in this, just but I know in real life the support vessels really help out. Destroyers launching, you know, you can watch plug for my War Thunder videos, you know, broadsides of torpedoes into lines of battleships or other ships coming in, that to a point that if they hold their position in the battle line, they're going to be hitting and presumably sinking some ships. Maybe not right away, but they're going to be doing that. And the big guns from pocket battleships, from heavy cruisers, from battle cruisers, which I really haven't built much of those, and battleships, you know, are going to be, you know, slugging it out, and light cruisers are, you know, 6-inch guns, 5-inch guns even. Those aren't penetrating, generally speaking, the main belts of armor on a battleship, even a bit of an older one. But that doesn't mean that they're not smashing in and taking out secondary guns. That doesn't mean they're not putting holes through the hull, because the belt of armor just really sort of gets like the magazines and the main engine spaces and some of the other stuff. So you could really be shooting up useful bits of ship, like the you know, the Japanese were known for their sort of pagoda style, very high towers. Shooting those up, those towers, you shoot up that tower. How is it going to aim its guns? From the guy in the turret looking through a much lower, so he's no longer high, much lower. He's going to be aiming his 3 guns max at one target, and he's going to be firing, looking out through his small targeting scope at the ship and seeing where the fall of shot is, because he knows that he's going to have to dial in, like, oh, well, it's going in the opposite direction we are, so we have to lead the ship or whatever. So, you know, figuring all that out. And so by the time the rounds are landing and hitting, they're no longer in the field of vision. So he may not realize that he's a little ahead, a little behind, or a little long or a little short, because he doesn't have good range finding equipment, and that may be shot up too, because some of the turrets do have range finding equipment on them, but they're not like under the super heavy armor. So even if rounds hitting nearby and, you know, shrapnel from the stuff, both the pieces of the ship and or whatever, can start damaging some of all that stuff, though the turret itself may still be quite functional. So sort of looking at that, he's no longer nearly as effective. You know, maybe not to the point of being ineffective, but he's no longer effective as broadside of the Yamato, all guns aimed at same ship target, not like at the same point on the ship, you know, to penetrate through, but all coming in to land, hopefully all sort of right in and on or around, because they're not all going to hit. You know, 9 big heavy 18-inch shells just hammering whatever that they're firing at. And yeah, those are going to penetrate through just about any armor. The Yamato and the Musashi, there are zones of invulnerability that it was designed to have. Okay. And what that is at really long range, like from here to here, your rounds will come up and come in at an angle, okay? And at that angle, and at that range, no, okay, sorry, need to go back. At really long range, they fire up a high parabellum arc and come crashing down through the top. Well, you do have a certain amount of armor, but mostly if you're talking big heavy guns, not a destroyer's guns, but big heavy guns, you're going to come through. So if you stay sort of far away and are still able to hit, it's harder and harder to hit. And of course, sea conditions, both of how much waves you're hitting, you know, because even if the ship's going up and down, oh, just 5 degrees, you put a gun out of alignment by 5 degrees, you're going to miss your target, right? Okay, so it just, you know, how many degrees is the ship moving, rocking, listing up and down, you know? Okay, so sea state matters, especially at long range, because 5 degrees at long range can mean you miss the whole area of where the enemy ships are potentially. So at long range, the plunging fire coming in the top will smash through normally the top armor. Okay. Now, if you get in close, you know, if you're close like this to the enemy vessels, and they're shooting horizontally, straight across at you, big heavy guns into your armor, generally speaking, and even with like the Musashi and the Yamato, you know, the American 16-inch guns and earlier like 15 and I don't know, 14-inch, I don't know exactly all the calibers, you can smash through. So if you get close enough, you can put a high velocity, it's still going very fast, sort of straight into the armor belt and penetrate through it. Okay, but shall we call it medium range? You get into medium range where you can effectively hit the target, but it's the sort of medium range, it's this sort of shallow arc that it's coming in at. The rounds have slowed up a bit because they're no longer coming at as high velocity. They're coming in often at an angle, and so at an angle to the armor that it's hitting. Because if you have vertical armor and you're coming in at an angle to it, it reacts as if it's sloped armor on a tank that you're coming in, you know, at a 90-degree parallel to the ground. But so if you're arcing it in onto a vertical thing, but if you're having sloped armor and you're arcing it in, you're now going, you know, straight into it. You know, so if you have something of an arc into a sloped armor, you're now going in through its least protective thickness. So, but that medium sort of distance is where the Yamato and the Musashi were built to be invulnerable, basically for its primary fighting systems. Okay, secondary gun turrets, penetrate them. A bunch of areas on the hull, penetrate it. But its engines, its magazines, sort of front face of its gun turrets, and some of that kind of stuff. You know, if you obviously hit right on the gun, you'll damage it, dislocate it, maybe, you know, whatever, take out that particular gun barrel. Gun barrels are, you know, especially something like a 16 or 18-inch gun. Shoot it with a 50 caliber rifle, you're probably not going to affect it. You know, you're going to put a big divot in it, but you're not going to affect it. Hit it with a 6-inch round. Ooh, yeah, because that just, the jar of hitting that into the mounting system would probably, if not destroy it, would put it out of service. So yeah, a direct hit on it. But generally speaking, you're hitting a lot of areas, you know, that the main sort of battle fighting areas, they're protected in that invulnerable zone. So that was, the Yamato and the Musashi were meant to be invulnerable to gunfire of any other gunfire navy. And the Japanese, even though some of them knew that the carrier was going to be the big thing in the battle, even some of those people knew that the carriers were super important and were going to do it. They still believed, just because of their Mahan talked about this. They were a Mahanian Navy. Alfred Thayer Mahan, the American naval theorist and historian. They were very much still a Mahanian Navy. And this, the Americans were the Mahanian Navy. The Japanese, those were the two primary. Britain, sort of. They have an older tradition, but to a point, Mahan is looking at why the British became what they became and sort of distilled it down. So they're sort of a Mahanian Navy. I don't know if somebody who's a real Royal Navy scholar would dispute that. I'm sure many officers read Influence of Naval Power on History, or whatever the whole title is, but it's sort of shortened to Influence. I'm sure many of them read it. I'm sure many of the key people read it. Now, how much did they internalize and then try to use, or that's what we already do kind of thing, and we have our older tradition. As I think it was JP says, it takes 3 years to build a battleship. It takes 200 years to build a naval tradition. But I mean, he's quoting that kind of thing. And that's sort of very, very true. And so Britain has that winning tradition. And Alfred Thayer Mahan looks all the way back, at least to the Battle of Salamis, defeating the Persian invasion, the one that's the same invasion of the Battle of the 300 at the Hellespont. The 300 Spartans. At Thermopylae. But the later sort of battle that goes, the naval battle that the Greeks win. That the 300 and plus, there were other Greeks there, but 300 Spartans, there were a few thousand, 2,000-3,000 Greeks total, I think, at Thermopylae. That's just the delaying action, but that delays it long enough for reactive measures, including getting the combined Greek fleet together, and the combined Greek fleet destroys the Persian fleet, and that's what really wins it. Persia goes on to win a bunch of land battles, but then ends up sort of starving. So they go home because their supply ships are all sort of destroyed, sunk, can't sail because the Greeks are out with their military vessels, denying their use, because it's various things after destroying the main combat fleet. So they all end up going home because they can't stay. Not in big enough numbers to defeat the remaining Greeks, at least. It takes you sort of years, quite honestly, for the Greeks or for the Persians to fully leave the Greek peninsula, if I remember correctly. But still, and he goes back and looks from that battle at least, if not earlier, but it's hard to get earlier records that he can look at intelligently, up and through to his present day of 1880 or whatever it is he's writing the book. So they're a Mahanian Navy and still think that battleships like the Yamato and Musashi are going to come in after the aircraft has sort of dealt with the enemy aircraft, and after they sort of damaged the fleet, they're going to come in and smash up the last of the enemy battleships, and even though their battleships may get shot up, they're going to sink all the enemies and go home the victor and winner. And then, how are we going to do our peace treaty and readjust the borders and islands and zones of control and whatnot? And that's what they thought and wanted, but they had pissed America off too badly that, as I said before, there was on December 7th, Japan loses the war. Japan loses the war on December 7th. They enrage America so much that you could have found a significant percentage of America that wouldn't have been too displeased of the complete elimination of the Japanese people, because that's how badly they were enraged. And Japan's actions subsequent to that, including the horrible treatment of American prisoners that they were finding out on the release of them, and they sort of knew some of that before, but the horrible treatment and stuff just enraged them further. You know, not quite the German death camp situation, but more of the Soviet Gulag death camp, meaning we'll barely keep you alive for as long as possible to work you to death, and then eventually, once you're dead, we'll bury you, maybe. You know, and so that on top of everything else just enrages the American people so much that they wouldn't have been displeased with that sort of reaction, that if we just carpet bomb them or carpet nuke them. And so I don't care in whether game terms or other real. Well, if the Japanese had did this and if they did that, yeah. Well, if they had killed every single last American, they could win the war. But that wasn't going to happen. And as we can see, that submarine shows up in Oregon and fires 17 rounds. And that's quite effective, 17 rounds, I'm sure, because that probably made America do millions, tens of millions of dollars in that day's work to do coastal fortifications, because they were still building coastal fortifications before 36. I mean, well before we can talk about the whole thing, because I looked into this. The U.S. has had a long period, going back to, well before the War of 1812, because we have, with Baltimore and the Star-Spangled Banner is, I forget some of the words, but that the flag's still flying the next day. That's firing at a coastal fort. Oh man, I'm forgetting I know it, but I'm blanking on the title of the coastal fort. So that's 1812. We already have a coastal fort program, and it goes up until basically the end of World War II, even into it. It's really finally the realization of the Coastal Artillery Command that nukes exist and coastal fortifications only at that point, because they didn't, until the bombs are dropped, Coastal Command, or the Coastal Artillery Corps, didn't know that nukes even existed. Okay, like most soldiers didn't even know they existed, and so that's in 45 they dropped the bomb. So they're still looking at that point, post-war, coastal defenses, because oh yes, well, you got airplanes, sure, you've got big fleets and all sailing around, but maybe the fleet is somewhere else and you have a very valuable port that you need to defend. So they were still looking at that, and they were upgrading before 36. I looked in and I made the event that basically covers everything that happens up and through to the end of 36, in the sense that the ICs are already spent. They're just sort of installing the guns, but they continue from 36 until 41, that and increase coastal fortifications leading up to the start of the war. And then once the war happens, they still increase coastal fortifications of various types all along, not just the Pacific, but the Atlantic, and places like the Philippines, which also had coastal fortification, coastal guns, these kind of things, before 36. So there is definitely that sort of stuff going on with the Americans until that point. So yeah, okay. You made it this far. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the video. Next episode, a replay with the carrier strike strategy onto this province, with the sort of carrier fleets I'm thinking here, so that the wounded ones will come through here. We can shift the carrier strikes, of course. Wounded ones will come through here after coming through the main battle fleet, and we'll have some, make sure some good surface ships as well as carriers are in here. And of course, whatever that's left here very well may follow. You know, whatever is it leaving. So we'll try this again. I just want to see how that changes everything, because I'm just seeing so many CAG duty ships, and I think I'm seeing I'm pretty sure these are CAG aircraft that have rebased to here once they're carriers. The Soyu group is rebased here because they were close enough to rebase to, and they're hardly scratched, and they're carriers. So, I don't need that to happen. So yeah, thanks so much. See you next time. Love to hear your comments. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already.